Hi, guys. On today's show, I have a guest with me, and I have a question for all of y'all. Do you know what a personality awareness coach is? Well, my guest today will help fill us in on that, as well as tell us her story, her journey as being an estranged parent. So hold on right a minute, and we'll be right back. I am a father who experienced estrangement from one of my adult children firsthand. Welcome to Beyond the Pain, a place where parents of estranged adult children can find peace and healing. In each episode, I hope to share stories that'll help you through some of your darkest hours, to bring this out of the shadows and stop being ashamed, then to build you up and inspire you to love yourselves even more. Okay, so we're going to bring in our guest, Ashta, and she's going to tell us a little about her journey and then tell you how she's been coping with that. So, hi there, Ashta. How are you?
Hi there, Donald. I'm doing fine. Thank you very much for having me on your show. Much
You're
appreciated.
you're very welcome. I appreciate you coming. I did want to remind everyone out there, just make sure and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and grab that notification bell. So let's get into it. So I guess first, what I'd like to do before we get into the estrangement and the other things you do, tell us a little bit about Ashta.
Well, part Ashta is that Ashta awareness because what I do directly came from my life and my experiences in life. And I found in my younger days, some of you can see the gray hair here, we didn't have accessible to us terms like CPTSD, bipolar, and things like that. So, like many people, I was just floundering. And I had experienced at the age of 9 the suicide death of my sister at 13. So that brought me into a space where there was no therapy at that time. So I'm originally from South America, Guyana, and moved up to Toronto, where I was introduced to psychiatry and psychology, which absolutely did not help.
Mm.
And I've started to learn that, you have to be self-reliant. I had to be self-reliant on how I was going to heal myself, how I was going to actually make it through a day and the next day and the next day. And suddenly it was, I come from a long line of yoga family where my family was very much involved with yoga and meditation. And I quickly realized that awareness was the root of what was going to make me better. And subsequently dealing with PTSD with awareness, introspective self-questioning, I was able now to process life as it came to me. So it doesn't mean that coming now to the estrangement when it happened doesn't mean I didn't fall to my knees and cry. What it meant was when I was crying, I was able to process that as I was
Mm.
going through it. So it didn't keep me stagnated into a victim mode or a just wallowing, basically, because I always say that crying is really healthy, it's very therapeutic, but we have to know when we're crossing that boundary into wallowing, into that stagnation, into what's stopping us from living. And I'm not going to say living the best life because that creates a thought of then there must be a worse life, but just living life as it presents itself to you.
Mm.
So, so my business was actually birthed out of my experiences. And, I found it very funny that subsequently, when I didn't realize that that was what was happening. But when I did go and said, you know what, I'm going to see what counselors are teaching now, uh, several times I ended up teaching the counselor And
Right.
they ended up actually, one young lady actually left her job right after she had had 3 sessions with me, because she
Wow.
realized it wasn't a job for her. And so it always started, things started to make a turnaround where I became this teacher unknowingly. I would go to the mall and people, because I was a stay at home, I had started doing accounting. I couldn't do it. PTSD, it was just something that it was not a career for me. So I left the accounting, and subsequently was a stay at home mom for the 4 children. But every time I go to the mall, I I ended up bringing people home with me, because they would walk up to me and says, I don't know what it is about you, but I need to speak. And then I'd say, okay, come to my house. The kids are at school. Come. And I remember my husband at the time, we're divorced now, but at the time he said, you don't know who you're bringing to this house. So it was like destiny for me presented itself. And it was like I was choiceless in that destiny. I just walked right into it based on my suffering. So even speaking about estrangement today, I have been on both sides of this fence. I was the child who estranged my mom and my dad. And now some Hindu people would say that's karma, but I just think it's, that destiny that now I am estranged from my children. But I'm able to understand that because I know why I did it to my mom. So now I'm on this two sides of the fence where I can actually go over to this house and understand where that child is coming from. And I can go over to the other house and
Right.
understand where the parent is coming from. But I can actually sit on the fence and observe both sides of it. And somehow, I always think life is a mystery. And there's some talents that arise in us that are highly mysterious. And I got to tell you, I just feel, I don't know how this has come about, but it's it was taking really hard looks at myself, self honesty. And I actually remember a trip to India where I asked one of the gurus there, I said, how do I get rid of this suffering? Because, you're just like, I just got to get rid of this. I can't stand it. And he looked at me and quite matter of factly, he said to me, he said, you suffer till you yourself can't stand it. And I
Mm.
looked at the sky and I thought, so this is what I paid my money for. I thought, say some prayer, do something, like
Right.
get rid of it. But when I walked out of there, the way he had said it, that tone in which he had said it, that was a strength that said, you know what? I am going to look at this suffering because it's already there. The
Right.
CPTSD had already embedded itself. Certain experiences had already embedded itself. So it's like when you're in a tunnel and you have to say, do I walk back or do I walk forward? Because I'm so far into this tunnel now. What do I do? And
Right.
the only place was to walk forward. That was the only thing left to do. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's a bed of roses, but what I can say is when you do process that pain, you come out much stronger, much better able, equipped to handle things as it presents itself. And very much so you can help other people. And this is not something I always tell my clients this is not something that's gifted to me. This is in everybody, this intuitive awareness to ask ourselves. We might hear our children, part of estrangement is our children are hearing a lot of generational healing. We, in the days, would say man is a product of his environment, programming. But
Right.
but generational healing, what they're learning today is what I actually wished I had learned before. But what they're learning today is how that generational, that those how the grandparents impacted the parents, how the parents impact the child. And whether we like it or not, that is the law of nature. That is a nature that actually happens. We do
Right.
impact each other. Children learn from actions. We don't really learn a lot from words when we're young, but the actions. They used to have an old saying, I don't know if people still use it. And you might hear me say a lot of these old sayings, but action speaks louder than words.
Right.
And sometimes we can say words, and we know this. Being Canadian, I can tell you they have this niceness, but then you look at it and then you're thinking, you're being nice, but there's something about that niceness that's sounding a little bit sarcastic and aggressive. So it's how you apply that vibration to that words, basically. So yeah, sorry, I'm so passionate about this, and letting everyone know that the gift of awareness, intuitiveness, that's our right. We are born with that, and we have to exercise it. It's like any other muscle. It has to be exercised. It gets squashed down. It gets sort of repressed when we have to listen to society, our own parents, the culture, what it's telling us. Bad versus good, reward versus punishment, and that's what makes us sort of sit and doubt ourselves. And I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time doubting myself until I recognized that, wait a minute, the one person I should be trusting is myself.
Right.
If I can't trust me, then I can't trust anybody. So the
That
one
makes
person
sense.
I should be supporting, I have to be my best cheerleader. I can't depend on uh, therapists and friends and family and shows, or the internet to validate me. I have to learn on every level to do that for myself, and that's what I did, and
Absolutely.
that's
And
what gave me the gray hair.
and that goes for all of us, both the parents and the kids. So humans. So I absolutely agree with that. So you touched on your estrangement. Do you mind sharing how many kids do you have, and how many of them are estranged?
Well, I have 4 children,
Okay.
and today is actually one of their birthdays. So 37 to 20. So it's
Okay.
37, then we go down to 33, and then we go to 22, 20.
Okay.
That's how they range. And God forbid I mix those ages up, because I've I've gotten a lot of flack for that memory with mixing them up.
Oh yeah.
All their birthdays are in the same month, actually.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, they used to tell me, Mommy, you can't celebrate Valentine's Day. We don't want you, because they all sort of came 9 months after Valentine's. But
That's funny.
the two eldest ones became estranged first.
Okay.
Um, and it was actually my second daughter first. And then the eldest daughter followed suit, because once the second daughter became estranged, conflict ensued. Now,
Sure.
meanwhile, I was a young mom when I raised them. And I want to say this because there's two different marriages. And you can actually see the difference in the upbringing from the two eldest to the two youngest. A mom who was completely unaware to a mom who had started to discover herself. So you can see this two difference.
Right.
But when this estrangement started, I honestly believed that tempers were going to cool down. It was like every other quarrel in the house, no big deal. So when 1 month passed, I thought, it's okay. I needed to cool off myself. Two
Right.
months passed. But when I started hitting that year mark, and then the second daughter decided she wasn't going to talk to me anymore. And then I thought, well, fine, still. Now I had to process the second daughter. Okay, another month. But it was that 3 year mark. And I hadn't realized, Donald, that 3 years had gone by.
Wow.
It's one of those things where you sit and say, and it's like, are we at Christmas already? It's like, oh my God. And it was the two youngest children. My daughter had gotten pregnant. And we had sort of separated, the family was separated, because the two youngest ones were very young. And I was afraid that they were going to get influenced. And I was
Right.
afraid of losing them.
Right.
So subsequently, the two youngest ones became teenagers, and now my granddaughter was born. And they decided they were going to chill me. There was a chill. And then when I started hosting retreats, because then I started hosting retreats outside of Toronto, uh, I went to do that retreat. And I can tell you after that, there was a, that's when I learned the term ghosting. I had not known that
Mm,
term whatsoever. And that's when I learned it. And it was a
yeah.
young person. Ironically, it was a young person. I was talking and someone said, they said, Auntie, you're being ghosted. And I said, what do you mean ghosted? What is ghosted? And she started to teach me what was ghosting. So I would send a text, no response. I would send, happy Easter, no response. And even the older girls, I would send, you would hear a song that would touch you, and you'd think the song would touch them too. And what I sent a monetary gift through e-transfer to one of the girls, and she sent it back.
Oh, goodness.
And then I actually texted her then and I said, please block me from your phone because I cannot restrain myself from reaching out. The interesting is they never blocked me.
Hmm.
But then somehow when I typed that text, I realized, wait a minute, what am I doing? What's happening here? And I had to really except now I didn't, and again I gotta say this too, I didn't know estrangement was a thing, because remember, now I'm helping people with awareness, but I'm
Right.
helping them based on they can't get along with somebody at work, they can't they're trying to make a living, that they don't know what's stopping them, so all those things you see on the internet about people trying to make it in life, right?
Right.
So then I didn't realize estrangement was a thing because I had stopped talking to my mother when I was in my 20s and 30s. And that was literally, I stopped talking to her, but I never understood that term estrangement related back to her.
Right.
It was relatable. Stop talking became the word estrangement. I quickly learned that. And then the sorrow, there was a sorrow that descended upon me.
Yeah.
And like most parents said, it was confusion as to, wait a minute, we've had fights before, but why were we able to make up then and we're not able to make up now? What was that pushing over the edge?
Right.
And then I felt really tormented. And I think that's part of my ad. I always say, from confusion to clarity, torment to tranquility, because everything I write is what I experience. This torment, it was like a torture. And I mentioned my sister earlier because when she died, it was a very, very sad time. But this felt, it was like a knife in my gut,
Right. And
so
it just keeps turning.
and it keeps turning, and I started this questioning, what can I do, what can I do? And I started doing like every other parent, and at that point I decided, I can't be an awareness coach, are you kidding me? Look what's happening in my life. So I decided I was going to fire myself from my own business. I could not function. I realized then that this is something like the CPTSD, that I've got to really put full time into this. The marriage started breaking up because, of course, at this point now I'm like, I can see, perhaps if it had broken up earlier, it might not have come to this. But I started to look at my involvement and what I could have done
Right.
differently. And when you got to look at yourself, I had to face, because I started life with my children not wanting to be like my mom. And a lot of us do that, only to realize that we do subconsciously behave like our parents. And
Right.
there's some sub moments that I had to reflect upon, that was, it brought me to feel ashamed of. And then I realized I was acting at the level of consciousness that I was aware of at that time.
Hmm.
So subsequently, though, I got a very, very uh, forgiveness. There's this huge energy of forgiveness towards my mother. And I started to see how she acted at a level she was at. And again, some people would say it's karma, but I had started to make peace. There was a peace, not verbally, but there was a peace with all the circumstances we had gone through with her.
Right.
And coming back to my kids, I recognized that I had while I was trying to be Carol Brady, some of us might know the Brady Bunch. I tried to be Carol Brady. I got to tell you, I don't. I watched that show and I always thought that's the mom I want to be, and
Right.
then, and I ended up creating this personality, and this is where personality awareness comes in. So much trying not to be like mom, I ended up creating this personality that was it was unsustainable. You can't upkeep it. So then you
Yeah.
start slipping into what you were brought up with. And I started to see that either which way I was not being my authentic self. So I had to search for that authentic self. And with my children, I recognized that I had to stop this parent personality. I had to stop it. And I had to see and accept, because psychology tells us man has three biggest fears: rejection, death, and public speaking.
Hmm.
And what was the biggest thing for all, and I saw this in all parents when I started to research, it was the rejection.
Yeah.
My child had rejected me in a way that was completely not in within my realm of understanding. And that rejection, I had to process and realize that when I'm feeling rejected, I had become the child to my child. Because if I'm feeling rejected from them, I have now become, I'm asking them to be the parent to accept me.
Right.
And I know that sounds far fetched, but when you get deeper into it, it actually, it really sort of, it's like a puzzle piece.
Hmm.
And I had to deal with my rejection, first fear. And then I had to deal with death because I had to have a gallstone removed. And I thought, but how am I going to die and never see these children again?
Right.
Because I know gallstone is an everyday surgery now, but at the
But
time, that mental state I was in was, I just, and I found myself at the hospital really literally texting and saying, I'm going into surgery and I just want you to know I love you. And no response. And and it was actually a good thing that they neither one of them responded. And I thought, you know what? I got to take care of me,
yeah.
or else I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to get somebody else who is an individual in their own right now, just like I'm an individual in my own right with my own mom, my own father, who was he's passed away, but I had to be that individual in my own right.
Yeah.
And when I sat that day, I thought, how do you have this parent personality? What is it?
Right.
And I really took a long look at it. And I got to tell you, to make a long story short, so that I don't eat up all your time. When I dropped that personality, believe it or not, it wasn't about. It was actually this summer. I was in Toronto because I actually ended up leaving. I just the winters, and I got to tell you, on top of estrangement, winter takes a toll. If you
Oh, I'll
have
bet.
depression and you're able to get out of a cold climate, I advise everybody to do that, because climate really, environment really, everything is impacting you, and you have to, with what's within your control, sort of remove it one by one so you can deal with it in a more with more space, and not all together, all bunched up like in a shopping bag full of groceries you
Right.
know and people would always talk about, we all have a black bag. Well, I say we have a suitcase that some of us, it's very well packed. So I had to, and I literally visualized myself opening a suitcase and just pulling out one by one and unpacking that suitcase. And subsequently, I That's the one of the offers I have. I created this relationship responsibility guidebook, and it
Right.
literally is called Unpacking My Role. And that Unpacking My Role name came from me literally sitting there and saying, no, this is not a black bag. This is not no duffel bag I'm carrying. This is a suitcase, and I'm going to unpack. And,
Yeah.
and and it's funny, when I started that visualization, I thought, how many suitcases do I have? And suddenly I literally saw like three suitcases in front of me. And I go, okay, like a vacation, I got to unpack that life out of that
Okay.
suitcase. And that's what I did. And I don't know how, and this is the mystery of life. I met with the two youngest children in August. And today I'm telling you, we're no longer estranged.
Awesome.
Because when we talk now, I don't even get that. There's something about that parent personality you don't see until you put it aside and you're talking
Right.
to your child. Then suddenly it's like it's two different vibrations. And my daughter and I was quite surprised actually. She actually calls me sometimes. I don't have to initiate that call.
That's awesome.
And even for their birthdays, I was able, I sent them their gift. But when we talk now, there is and for lack of a better term, there's an authenticity there.
Yeah.
I can really understand when a child says, now you're talking to me like I'm a kid, because now now that I've moved over to this side of the fence, you can see now what actually that means. I now understand what
Interesting.
it means when I told my mom she was talking to me like a kid. Stop talking to me like a kid. It doesn't mean talk to me like an adult. It just means just talk to me.
Right. And I think, that's a really good point. I've heard that similar things with some parents, and it's a difficult role to step out of, but I think it's necessary. I was talking to a gentleman, and he made the comment that we've taught them all we can. We did our job. They're adults. They're going to make their own decisions, and some of them we won't like, some of them we will, and it's just that's the way it is. So talking to them not like they're a little kid, but like they're just a person, I think is important. Now, you mentioned earlier, just to go back for a second, you mentioned your marriage. Do you think one or the other had something to do with either the estrangement or your separation from your marriage?
Yeah, the marriage did have an impact, because we often don't realize when parents are in conflict the impact on the child.
Yeah.
We think it's normal because our parents fought. So and there's something I really wanted to make sure I got across today, was that and I've heard this from many people. I wouldn't dare talk to my mom like that. And I was one of those people that said that. I would never tell my mom the things some of my kids told me. And then when I sat back and looked at that, that was because I was afraid of her. And if we look back, it was because we were afraid of our parents. And if it's one thing I absolutely am happy for, my children are not afraid of me. They may be uncomfortable with me, but they're not afraid of me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to step back just a couple of seconds in talking. We talk to them, not with them. We talk at them, not with them.
That's
And
true.
that's a difference, because when we're growing up, we're busy relaying instructions that make us feel comfortable. And what are those instructions? The discipline,
Hmm.
right and wrong, do this, do that. And I was actually talking yesterday about this. I know of a family that never gave their children instructions. And when I say never, they literally uh, they enjoyed them being a child. For some reason, this particular family, they just knew and enjoyed children being a child. And I couldn't understand that. until this happened. But those children, each and every one of them, are successful, have no mental issues, and the family is deeply bonded. They take care. So sometimes I wonder if we have infiltrated, because I know I did that because I grew up with this British system, growing up, British way of disciplining, and that was quite cold, actually.
Yeah.
Um, like I remember my daughter lying, and I couldn't stand anybody lying because my mom lied. So I disciplined her for lying. And but then, as I went through my own awareness journey, I realized, but she learned lying. Guess what? She actually learned it from me, because when I would tell her, somebody calls and I said, tell them I'm not here, that's a
Right.
lie. When I'm telling them about safety on the street, don't open the door, just tell them your mom and dad's at home when we weren't home. That was a lie. But in the child's mind, there's no white lie, dark lie, black lie. It's just, which one is, when do I use it? When do I not?
Right.
So yeah, so I wanted to say that, and the talking to them. I talked a lot to them and at them, and today I talk with them.
Well, that's awesome. That's great advice, I think. So we'll get into your website and your business in a second. Just one question before that is, if, I guess not if, because obviously you talk to parents all the time, but for a first time estranged parent, what's like the first thing you would tell them, advise them on?
Honestly, and I would do it right now, because when this show airs, I would really like them to try this.
Okay.
Just breathe, but breathe from your stomach. Inhale through the stomach, exhale, inhale. And after 5 breaths or so, I want you to imagine what your life would be like if estrangement wasn't part of it. If you, and this doesn't mean imagine your life with your child beside you and reconciliation happening. This is imagining your life if this estrangement wasn't part of it. If all these worries, anything you're carrying now, was not part of it, how would you feel? And in particular now, the estrangement, because that's what's monopolized all the space in your body. So if you can imagine for a moment what it would feel like not being estranged.
Mm,
And again, this is not about imagining you're reconciling with your child, just
right.
imagining that it is non existent in your life. I want you to really feel that space that opens up. And why is that space cluttered now? It's cluttered because of all these thoughts of what I should be doing, what should be happening, what what I'm uncomfortable with, what I want to feel comfortable with. And that's the space now that we want to get to. There's your goal, that space without the estrangement. And if you really want to stop, when I hear parents still crying after 3, 4 years, 5 years, I say, now you've crossed over that boundary into victimhood.
Right.
And estrangement is not, Donald, it's not about pandering your story. It's about really pandering that solution, because estrangement destroys your physical, mental, and spiritual health. It destroys you.
Yeah.
But imagine just feeling that for a moment, just sitting in that space for at least 5 minutes. Feel what comes up. Allow yourself to feel, because those tears that come up when you imagine estrangement not there, believe it or not, those tears are relief. When I did this for myself the first time, I started crying and recognized that it was relief. What would it feel like not to be having this blanket hanging over me? This blanket that I kept saying that I was an unworthy mom, I didn't do the right thing, when the reality was I did the best I could do in that moment, that whatever mental faculties were available to me. And really, that estrangement suffering is comprised of discomfort. And that discomfort is, what did I do wrong? What did
Right.
I do differently? And when you start saying, what did I do wrong? Now you're starting that self-hate, self-blame. And when I hear parents saying, they're childish, they can go on, I've moved on, I have a choice. And I've heard that, and you can hear it in their voice. Oh, we all have choices. You can hear it in their voice. That's an arrogance. That's a wall. You can hear the difference when you have a sense of peace, the recognition that choice does not even exist within us, within the realm of peace. It's like when I remember you said you'd lost your mother recently.
Mhm.
When you think of her now, I'm almost sure there's a sense of peace there.
Certainly.
And in that peace, you can see for yourself. You don't see choice. There's not a choice. Should I be at peace with her? Should I not? It's just peace.
Yeah.
Choice indicates that you're either for or against. So we have to get out of this mentality of for and against and come to that place where, if estrangement was not hanging over me, what would I feel?
Right.
How would I feel? And would I like to pursue that? Because if you can feel it, then we can now say, well, estrangement is something mental that keeps coming in that's disturbing that peace. It's not the child, it's the experience of what is happening. And believe it or not, it's that mystery that when that happens, that child literally, something happens like a domino effect in energy. Everybody gets released, and suddenly there's that communion. And I'm not saying about heal yourself for your child to come back to you. No, heal yourself so that when you're going through life, and if that child chooses to come back, now you're in a grounded position. You're not impulsively reacting. We're not, like, for me, I can honestly say I don't even remember what the conflict was with the two elder ones anymore.
Right.
I honestly don't. And that was through processing. But before I was processing myself, I constantly remembered what the conflict was. But once I focused on me, I don't remember what the conflict was. So then there was no choice there whether I was going to move on or not. I just moved. It was just a movement that started happening. And I really wish this for all parents, because we are, for our children to be estranged from us, that means most of us are on our last leg of our journey.
Right.
And I don't think any of us, the last thing I want for myself is to be lying on my deathbed crying over estrangement, something I couldn't handle, because really it comes down to, it's an emotional experience that we cannot handle.
Yeah.
And when I'm on my deathbed, I want to know that, you know what? I understood me. I didn't need to understand the world. And, many of my elder, and when I was in India as well, when they speak of death, when you're on your deathbed, from my understanding, you're not thinking about everybody. You're thinking about how you interacted with the world, what you
Right.
did, what you could have done differently. And we have those moments right now, and none of them should be wasted trying to get somebody to talk to you, trying to get somebody back in your life. And this is why therapy, even in estrangement, when I was looking, I wasn't looking for this reconciliation. I was looking to reconcile with myself, because based on my experience with awareness, I knew this emotion was coming from me. And the
Right.
only person that was going to make this better was me. And I had to start with, what was my goal? And my goal was that vision without estrangement,
Yeah.
that feeling of lightness, that feeling of tranquility, that feeling of clarity. That sometimes we have to accept destiny happens. Our life doesn't always go the way we plan.
That's for
But and
sure.
when it does, yes, three cheers. And in India, I was taught this really nice saying: when you get what you want, it's good. But when you don't get what you want, it's even better, because it's divine intervention.
I like that.
So that takes me every step of the way.
Yeah.
because it's good when you get what you want, but when you don't, that is something for us to deal with. And we are very capable human. It's in our DNA to survive. So what is
Sure.
survival?
Right.
Processing our own stuff, not what the world is telling us. Because estrangement is very different for everybody. There are some abusive parents. Mine in particular, I had to step away from. It was destroying me.
Yeah.
And there's parents that are not abusive, but their child is just simply uncomfortable with them. They're uncomfortable saying things with them. They're uncomfortable having a heart to heart with them. But
Right.
guess what? That heart to heart happens as they start growing. Time matures every single one, whether we like it or not. Time is evolving us, whether
Well,
physically or internally.
well, for sure. I remember before my son and I estranged, he'd become an adult, he'd become a father, he was just got married, whatever. And some of the things that we discussed when he was a child or a teenager, he was coming to that realization, that understanding what had been said back then. And it was really interesting. So it kind of goes along with what you're saying. So
Yes, they
uh,
also evolve. And one of the things I want to tell parents too, that I did, and regretfully so as I look back, was making statements that, oh, it's their partners that are making them do this. And that's not true, because if that's not in your child already, there's no partner that can bring it out. That means it was there and their partner just validated what they were already feeling.
that's a good
And
point.
perhaps the partner validates what the parent didn't validate. I
Right.
didn't validate when my daughter was lying. I didn't say, why was she lying? What was I doing? Because I was a young mom, and I'm not going to make that an excuse, but it is the truth. I just wasn't
Right.
thinking. I was this career accounting woman, and but when I look back now, if I had says, but what is it that's prompting her to lie to me? Then it could have been that strong career mom image that I had. At the end of the day, it was that she wanted to perfect herself to be like her mom.
Yeah.
And I was indeed a perfectionist. I was indeed an accounting person. It tends to be. I mean, even when I balance my checkbook now, I'm like, oh God, 3 cents off, and the
Hmm.
computer isn't forgiving either. It doesn't balance when that happens. But
No.
I had to, when I look at that, I wouldn't have wanted to approach my own mother. And when especially if we're career moms, and this was the difference too, we we think I call it, we're there but not there. We're not really engaging and listening. I wasn't
Right.
really engaging and listening to their day at school. I was like, oh, how was your day? Amazing, good. And all the right words were being said, but that right vibration was not being sent.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm I'm happy that I took a plunge. That when I took that plunge to, because I had already been examining personalities, because I knew it's actually ego awareness, what Sigmund Freud and all these guys talk about, and it's being aware of how we act out our survival instincts, because ego is really our survival. And when I took that plunge, I remember sitting there and saying, oh my God, does this mean I'm cutting off my child? If I'm going to try this, my own process here, because I never teach anything I haven't tried myself. So I was embarking on my own journey here, really something I'd personally done, personally written. And I thought, does this mean I'm going to be separated? But I decided that I was going to plunge into this lake of cold water, even though I wasn't the best swimmer. And when I did that, miraculously, it just, like I said, the two children and I, or the two youngest, are, in fact, my youngest daughter, she said to me about a week or two ago, she said, I said, how are your sisters doing? She said, fine, because I would just, say, how are they doing? She says, you know something, mommy, sometimes I think maybe they didn't understand you. she said to me. And I really appreciate that because that showed me that whatever changed within me,
Right.
now she was able to see. I mean, look at, I remember growing up, and my dad would never tell us what his salary was. That was a big secret, what the
Hmm.
income of the family was. And now I sit back and think, why, if they had done that, perhaps I would have been better equipped to handle finances.
Right.
Because as a teenager, I ran up my credit card. When I was like 19, 20, 21, I ran up my credit card. I didn't know. So all these sort of secrets we keep within the parenting system tends, and now our children are exposed to the internet, so they're learning all the secrets that we were keeping.
Right.
Right? So I hope I'm not blabbing on too much. I'm really passionate about this. Because I've had a sister that I lost to suicide. I see comments on the internet of parents who have actually voiced feeling like they would like to end their life, and
Yeah.
I really propagate dying with dignity, but I don't think ending your life because that's worth because your child is not talking to you.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, it
if
is unfortunate, but there are, there are certainly cases that I'm sure cases that have happened. So,
and it's like there is, if you're feeling sad, you got to know Newton's law dictates there's an opposite. So
yeah.
you got to ask your, and I would tell your viewers too, when you're feeling sad, say it. I'm sad, but what's the opposite to that? I'm
Right.
happy. Where did my happiness go? Where did my happiness go? Bring yourself back to the present. Ask yourself, what am I doing now? This was something I also did. What am I doing now? And I would literally say, now I'm crying, I'm sobbing, I'm wiping my nose, I'm sad, I'm feeling lonely. Then I would do the next question, what should I be doing now? And when I asked that, what should I be doing now? You'd be surprised. I remember one time it said, I just got this thing. I just need to go take a shower. I had woken up. I was feeling
Yeah.
so depressed. I'd let myself go for the whole morning, and and then it just. And when I took that shower, I felt refreshed. So it's bringing yourself back to that present. What am I doing right now? When you hear someone say, I don't trust anymore because I don't trust my child, or my child made me not trust. No, you're not trusting. What am I doing now? I'm blaming myself. I'm literally pointing fingers at myself and saying, "You're not trusting."
Yeah.
So what am I doing now? What should I be doing? What could I be doing? See the difference, even when you ask that question,
Yeah.
opens you up. I think science, I read somewhere they said there's something in your brain that when you ask the question, it immediately lights up. Because I'm not a scientist by any means, but they said it
I
immediately
think I've
lights
heard
up.
that too. Yeah.
Then this expansion happens. Now in yoga, that's what they teach us also. Never make a statement, always ask a question. I know in the Bible and stuff they say ask and you shall receive, meaning ask the question. It wasn't about
Right.
asking to buy a new car. It was about ask the question. And when you
Yeah.
start self-questioning and saying, why am I crying? My child has moved on with their life. And I'm not saying the children aren't hurting, but they're getting help now. They're getting the help we couldn't get when we were younger. They're
Right.
getting that help. Their help is at their fingertips all over the place. In fact, they're saturated with help,
Hmm.
but we're the ones that need to start accepting, you know what? I need to take that help. And I always I was telling my friend yesterday, I said, you know what? You can teach an old dog new tricks because I am an old dog and I did learn new tricks. They also you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's not true. You can teach yourself new tricks. And if
Right.
you keep up with we're looking at two generations as well, eh? So we're looking at our generation and the new generation. If
Right.
you want to keep up, you got to learn those tricks. And look at how we do it. You're podcasting. You probably never dreamt about this 20 years ago.
No.
Sitting in front of the computer, but you taught yourself that new trick.
Yeah. For sure.
So just like we're teaching ourselves technology, we need to teach ourselves mentally now. What is it that I can teach myself mentally that whatever life throws at me, I'll be able to face it? So there's no, I don't think there's anything that's like, life will throw things at you, but you have to be able to accept, number one, it's going to throw things at you, and then say, okay, so now how am I going to process it?
Right, right.
Right.
Very
I
good.
know. You
Yeah.
tell me when I should shut up, by the way, because as I said, I get very passionate. It's like this, I don't know, it's like a bulb turns on inside of me. And I just,
No, I hear you. I am the same way sometimes about things, and no, I think it's been a great conversation, and I think a lot of it will be resonate with a lot of people. You offer some good points and good services, and on that note, if anyone does want to reach out to Ashta, um, the website, I will link it in the description as well, for any of the services that she offers. I know on her website it talks about personality awareness, a strange parent program, and some collective sessions, and she can tell you a little more what those are about if you want to reach out to her. But yeah, I think it's been great.
and I would like to encourage people when they go to the website to download the PDF, relationship responsibility, unpacking my role. It's
Okay.
on the under the services of estranged parents. It's there. Download it. It has questions there that honestly it will bring an awareness to how your expectation of a relationship, how it should be. uh, the way I form the questions is so that you can have a real sort of step back and say, how do I view my relationship? How have I been acting in my relationships? And it's not, and when I say relationships, I'm not zeroing in on children. This is for everybody. Do I love bomb my friend, or and am I curt to my husband or my partner? So
Right.
it really, it's a really good guidebook to give you. It will definitely give you an awareness of how you view relationships, your expectations in relationships. And when you have that awareness, then you have nothing else to do. When the awareness descends, then it descends. The other thing I would like to do, for, because I know your show directly deals with estranged parents, I'm offering 20% off on any private session. You have to type in the word beyond in all caps, as in beyond the pain, but just beyond in all caps, and
Okay.
automatically you'll give that 20%. And I do have a 45-minute free consultation, which I will honestly admit always runs to an hour and a half. Because I walked in these shoes. I know what it felt as a young person, not having money or just having quality help available to me, to where I am today. So I wanted to make that 45 minutes available, because come on, we go on a Zoom chat and we talk to each other, and you'll be able to get a good feel of private sessions, collective sessions, and the program itself.
Awesome.
I endorse the program because I did it. I
Sure.
did it. I would never put anything out that I haven't done before, because I really need to, I like to stand by my word, because my word is my bond. That's all I can say about that.
Okay.
But do take advantage even of the 45-minute exploration. I do know Christmas was very, very hard for me in years back before I came to
Very.
the space. So those of you who are experiencing Christmas very, if it's really challenging, do call. You're not alone. um, we're here to support you, and I'm solution based. I don't believe in ruminating in our stories for a long time. What I do believe in is we need to come out of the story. We already know the story, so let's try to come out of it now. And I'm here for you. I understand how you feel. I still cry, and now I cry over the parents, because it's really, it, it really touches me. I never even knew this word empath, by the way. I only, like 5 years ago, someone said, "Oh, it's called an empath healer." I go, okay, but I really feel for you. I
Yeah.
really understand. Um, like I said, it's It's the ultimate rejection. I could have I bore my mother rejecting me and abandoning me, but I could not. It was my children doing it.
Yeah.
It was nothing within the realm of my sight. You know, they say we have blinders on. Well, indeed, when I gave birth to them, there was blinders on. But when those blinders are off, it's your life and theirs, and it's just so there's an emptiness that's a fullness. If you
Yeah.
know, it's empty, but yet it's filled. And like I said, if you find yourself saying, "I made a choice and I'm not doing this," know that that's just a wall you're putting up, because you'll feel it. You'll know in your heart. You'll feel that twinge. That choice might need some processing. I need some
Right.
talking through. Thank you so much. I know I talked a lot, but I'm just so passionate. Like I said,
That's
it
okay. That's why you're here.
it's like when you walk in someone's shoes, when you've already lived the experience, how can you not want to share what may be helpful? And that's
Exactly. And that's how this whole thing for me got birthed, is, like you were saying, mine happened just in September one year. So it was just not far from the holidays. And the first two holidays were just horrendous for me. So until I came out of it and was able to get some other help. Um, so no, I appreciate
Chris.
your Yeah, I appreciate your words and your time, and I think everybody will get some good information. Please, like I said, be sure to reach out to Ashta on her website. I'll make sure the offers and the website and all that are tagged in the pinned comment. Um, and other than that, is there any final words you'd like to share with everyone?
Well, I'd like to remind you to please envision yourself without estrangement and really feel what that feels like. What would it feel like if this estrangement wasn't hanging over my head? And please remind yourself, very simply, bring yourself back to the moment. What am I doing now? What could I be doing? What should I be doing? And immediately break that habit of ruminating, especially if you're ruminating. What am I doing now? I'm repeating something over and over in my head. What should I be doing? What could I be doing? And immediately get up and do it. Immediately remove yourself, do it. That's the key to breaking this habit. Ruminating uh, is from CPTSD as well. PTSD people, we ruminate. And it has worked tremendously well for me. It cuts that, immediately cuts that swirl, because the brain now has to say, what am I doing? It has to answer to what it's doing. And
Right.
then what should I be doing? It has to answer to what you should be or could be doing. And even if it's going out to a movie, forget that you have Netflix. Take your car, take the bus, physically go out to that movie. And I promise you, you're going to see the changes starting to happen slowly but surely. I thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Well, thank you again. And for everyone out there, just one more time, make sure you visit her website. And most importantly, like I always tell everyone, please just try to live beyond the pain. Talk to you guys soon.